obviously we've seen what he's done in the championship. He's
Right.
broken the record for the most goals scored in the championship with 31 goals this season. But then it just makes you think England will come knocking. And then you have to think, what would be his decision? Personally, for me, I would say go and play for Jamaica, not because it's my country of birth or not because it's the country I support, but I'm thinking long term. The last player I spoke to, and this was before the pandemic came and like took over, it was Mason Holgate, and that was it was West Ham versus Everton, and this was before the story broke about Mason Holgate being eligible to represent Jamaica. So I broke that story, and then after breaking it, it kind of like spread across the country. So
Welcome, Sports Nation, to Sports DTM, the sports channel where we call sports down the middle. You can expect the latest in sports news, views, and reviews from our resident analysts. No sports topic is too controversial, and no team or player is above criticism. So just smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on our balanced offering of riveting sports content. And don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment below. Welcome to Sports DTM.
Greetings, Sports DTM fans, and welcome to another episode of Sports Down the Middle, the channel of undiluted sports content. Today, we have in our virtual studio Tallawah TV founder and host, Crystal Davis. And for those who are not familiar with Tallawah TV, it mainly focuses on highlighting Jamaican sportsmen and sportswomen across the world. Crystal, welcome to Sports DTM's virtual studio. How are you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am great. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be part of our sports highlights of players across the world as well. So we're both in this together. So thank you for agreeing to be a part of this.
No worries. It's an absolute honor. Thank you for reaching out to me and asking me to come and have a conversation with you guys. It means a lot.
Awesome. So tell me, which team do you support, or which sport do you follow the most?
My main sport is football. Football is my main sport, followed by athletics, and I am a Arsenal fan. So I'm a Gooner.
Oh, welcome to the family. I'm also
Yeah,
an
are you an
Arsenal fan.
Arsenal fan?
Yes, it's a very
Good.
disappointing time in our football. I don't know,
Good. Good.
but we
I'm happy.
still push on. Yeah, a proud Arsenal fan despite all the
Mm-hmm.
struggles.
Yeah, we've hit a new low, and over the last couple of seasons, who would have thought that we would be in this position, just so unfamiliar. But I'm guessing the only positive is that we managed to turn it around compared to the start of the season when we were literally looking at relegation. And the thought did cross my mind. I was like, am I really about to see my team get relegated? It's
So
just something that you couldn't even process. So there's like slight positives there, but overall, obviously, it's a disappointing season for us.
should we be keeping this coach?
It's a very good question. I'm a fan of the person. Like, I have nothing against Arteta, nothing against him as a player, nothing against him as a manager or a coach, like nothing personally. But for me, he comes across as somebody who's very hard of hearing. He
Yes,
makes the same mistakes over and
over and
over
over.
again. And you have to wonder, do you not see things in hindsight? Do you not go back and watch the games? Do you not feel that you need to change the system? Because he gives out the same system, and the same system gives you the same results because of the same repeated performances. And he comes across as being very reactive. And when you do that in the Premier League, you're going to be swept away. You're going to be left playing catch up. And that's pretty much been our season, trying to play catch up. Now we're looking at the Europa League positions, and we've got three maximum 9 points that you can get from the last three games. And for us to even touch the Europa League position, we're dependent on teams above us to
To
lose their
lose.
three games
Yeah.
essentially. And for me, just like that's what we've come down to, where we're depending on other teams to lose their matches so that results work in our favor. would I like to see him go? I'm feeling like, yeah, why not?
Yes.
Why not just go? If you're not going to learn from your mistake, then it's pointless you being here. And
Yeah.
yes, people can say that, he doesn't have his own players, and you do take that into consideration. And you do say, okay, give him another transfer window. But my worry with that is, why are you struggling to utilize your tools? Why can you
Right.
not just utilize your current tools? Because say, for example, you crack on and you have a successful summer transfer windows. Say, for example, those players that you bring in suffer long-term injuries. Hopefully that's not the case. But if that is the case, then you're back to square one, where you're still trying to rely on your current players. And at the moment, you're not utilizing your tools well enough. So it just tells me that maybe whilst you do have potential, and yes, you are a young and inexperienced manager, maybe the timing is just not quite right. But obviously, I want to be wrong, because I want him to be successful with us, and I'm grateful for his season, with him coming in and giving us the FA Cup, which obviously led us to qualify for the Europa League. And I will not say nothing negative about him, but for me, you have to change your ways. Like, if you want to stay at Arsenal Football Club, despite the summer transfer window and maybe the January transfer window, learn how to utilize your tools. That's the basic.
Well, like you, I don't think he's ready. And I don't think he's ready for an Arsenal project. I don't think he's ready for the Premier League to be a manager. I've seen enough to think that somebody who is more experienced, who have done it, should be there. And some of the players really have potential, and they just need somebody who is good enough to bring it out of them and take Arsenal project forward.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why you would think that, and not many could disagree, because with Arteta, he does leave you with plenty of question marks. Like, we could look at the Europa League game. We basically needed one goal to qualify for the finals, just one goal.
And you're
right?
playing at home.
Exactly. And you look, you have what, 3 strikers on the bench?
Right.
And then you've gone with someone who has been ineffective and he's coming back from a illness. And you just kind of put that down. Yes, you can't rely on Lacazette, because Aubameyang's coming back from a illness. Lacazette is coming back from an injury. Eddie Nketiah is not somebody that you could rely on in that moment, in such a decisive moment. So you have to wonder, why not take your risk and bring Balogun into the game, or at least play Martinelli up front.
Right.
But instead, you go when you rest 3 strikers on the bench, and it's just like, well, what is the point of this? At one point, you took off Aubameyang, and then minutes later, you've got Eddie Nketiah coming on and Lacazette coming on. So it was just like, why not just keep Aubameyang on the pitch and bring on Lacazette? So it's just little decisions like that that's very like questionable. His obsession with Bellerin, who is now rumored to be on the summer transfer list. So it's never ending.
He should have been on the summer transfer list 3 years ago and should be somewhere else, as far as I'm concerned. Right. And on a more positive note, tell us a little about yourself, where you grew up and how you got involved in sports.
So I was born in St. Thomas. So I was born in Jamaica, and I've spent the majority of my upbringing in the UK, because I came here back in like the early 2000s.
Right.
So I've been for some time now. But for me, Jamaica is always going to have that special place in my heart, regardless of how long I've like lived outside of the country. And how I got into sports, it was basically because of my family. I've got a lot of men in my family, and they are very like, back then in like the early millennium, they were very into their football. So like every weekend they would watch the Premier League, and obviously Arsenal were they.
Yes.
That's how I got sucked in. And then from there, it's just like, I went from not wanting to watch the football to becoming almost like an addict So now it's like a lot of people say that football is like a religion, because essentially it is, because you worship your club. Like you would argue with people, random people for your club. You love your
Yes.
club. Football, like your stadium is like a place of worship. And slowly but surely, like I just became like a diehard Arsenal supporter, watching them week in, week out, despite the previous week's results and so on. And then athletics has been there since when I was in Jamaica. So from like the early days of like Merle Nutty and so on. So it's just always been there. I think it's difficult to say that you're a sports lover, you're a Jamaican sports lover, mainly if you're born in Jamaica and not appreciate athletics. So athletics was just so like natural for me to begin with.
Okay, so how is life in England and how has the pandemic affected you?
Oh, it's quite sad. I miss home. I'm like, I want to go home so bad. The pandemic it's been all right, because I'm quite like a quiet person. So I'm not one that's gonna be like, oh yeah, I have to be out every single
Okay.
weekend. Usually if I am out on my weekends, I'm usually covering a game for the Voice newspaper. They're Britain's only Black national Afro-Caribbean newspaper. So I'm usually covering like a game for them. So my weekends usually don't exist anyways. So it's not really like affected me in terms of my personal downtime. But I think it's more of like just wanting to go out and hang with your family. Mainly for me, it's my extended family. Just want to go home and just enjoy the good weather, enjoy the good food, and enjoy the vibes. Over here, it's very different. I think this is like for the first time in many years I've had to spend Christmas in England unwillingly. It was something that was just like, I don't like it here. I don't like it because the vibes is different.
Yeah.
So it's just little stuff that you wouldn't really think that you would miss until you're in that position where you're like, yeah, I miss Jamaica and I want to come home as soon as possible. How about yourself? How has it affected you?
It's been good for me. I'm working from home, so it's been good. It hasn't affected me much, but except
Yeah,
that I don't get to socialize as much as I would like. But outside of that, it's been good. Staying indoors
yeah.
helps to prevent the spread, so I'm just working with that. Um, what has been your best?
Doing your part for society.
Yes. What would you say is your best moment following football?
Best moment.
Yeah.
My best moment was going to the Worldcup, the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup, because I was blessed with the opportunity to follow the Reggae Girls. So from their first match against Brazil through to their match against Italy, and then ending it with Australia. Just that whole experience, it was very overwhelming to think that I've gone from being a university student studying sports journalism to graduating, and then within the space of say 2 years, I'm at a World Cup,
Yeah.
my first major tournament, and it's for my country. So that's been like my best moment.
Talking about the World Cup and seeing actually being there while the Reggae Girls were playing, I know that they had a lot of a fan base and they were very supportive. Friends, how was that experience like when you're walking around? I'm assuming in your
It
black,
was
green, and gold.
incredible. It's funny because I wasn't, because I was with them. So I was down as
Oh
media.
no.
Yeah, I was down as media, and usually I didn't want to take that risk because usually, like when I do games, so for example, if it's like a Premier League match or a FA Cup match, you're pretty much advised. There isn't like a written rule, but you're almost in some sense indirectly advised to be neutral, right? So
Right.
because when you press box and so on, and it's funny because when foreign journalists come to watch like Champion League game or Europa League matches, they're in their colours. Like I've seen them like in their club scarves and so on, but for like British-based journalists, it's nothing. So it's like I didn't want to risk that because I wasn't sure if they would allow me into the stadium in my Jamaican colors. But I was definitely with them in good spirits. So showing up and watching their training sessions, being at their hotel, just to see them on like their downtime and see moments that other Jamaican fans wouldn't have access to. It was just an incredible, incredible moment.
Who is your favorite reggae girl and reggae boy?
I don't have a favorite. It's so
All
funny.
of them.
I've thought about this a few times and I was just like, I really don't have a favorite. I'm just happy to watch them play. And for the Reggae Girls, just very grateful for them because they've given my generation something that we would never forget. They've given us the World Cup. And it's been all, prior to the Reggae Girls qualifying for the FIFA, for the 2019 World Cup, it was almost 30 something years that Jamaica were at a World Cup. So for me, it was just like, I'm very appreciative of the Reggae Girls and their achievements. But saying that, I still don't have a favorite Reggae girl. And for the boys as well, it's the same. I'm hoping that they could replicate what the Reggae Girls have done and qualify for the next World Cup. But there isn't a favorite in there at the moment.
Who, if you don't have a favorite, which reggae boy are you looking forward to watching play for the team? And I know there's a upcoming friendly match in Japan that they'll participate in. Who you looking forward to see, whether it be locally based or British based?
I think because of potential and what he could bring to the squad, it would be great if we could nail down Ivan Toney. And I'm a little bit somewhat, maybe a little bit worried in some sense because of, obviously we've seen what he's done in the championship. He's broken the record for the most goals scored in the championship with 31 goals this season. But then it just makes you think England will come knocking. And then you have to think, what would be his decision? Personally, for me, I would say go and play for Jamaica, not because it's my country of birth or not because it's the country I support, but I'm thinking long term. I'm thinking longevity. Are you going to get are you willing to accept the possibility of getting a handful of performances for England? Or are you willing to come and play for Jamaica where the love and respect will be there and you could potentially go down as a legend? So those are the two things that he would have to consider. But based on what he's done this season, like I said, breaking that record, I will be over the moon if he could just pick Jamaica and be brought into that squad for our Gold Cup games.
So Mr. Ivan Toney, if you're watching, you heard what Crystal said. Just follow everything that Crystal says. Have you gotten a chance to speak to any of them?
Who have I spoken to? When you say any of them, who are you referring to?
The English-based Jamaican players.
The last player I spoke to, and this was before the pandemic came and took over, it was Mason Holgate, and that was it was West Ham versus Everton, and this was before the story broke about Mason Holgate being eligible to represent Jamaica. So I broke that story, and then after breaking it, it kind of spread across the country. So he was the last English-born player based in England who's eligible to play for Jamaica. He's the last player that I was able to speak with in person. And like I said, that's slowed down heavily because of the pandemic and not being able to get that face-to-face interaction.
Right. Yeah, and also ESPN released a top 50 list recently, female players that is, and our very own reggae girl was on it. Do you think more Jamaicans should be on that list?
Yes, I would say that there should be more on that list, but that would just come down to favoritism. But one way of ensuring that the more reggae girls are on that list it comes down to a few things. So whether or not they play in a prolific league, whether or not they play for a club that's well respected, and also the players going out and doing their job on a regular basis. And then by doing those, which is essentially the basic requirements, then hopefully we can see more reggae girls on these well respected lists.
All right. Tell us a little about your Tallawah TV. How did it get started?
It got started, or I should say, it was thought of whilst I was in I was in my final year at uni. And I always have like these conversations with my friends where we're like, we want to know more about Jamaican football, both for the men's side and the women's side, but there was very little information out there unless you were to like do like deep research and so on. And so they used to always like ask me like, what's going on? Because I think because I was studying sports journalism and they know that I love football, they just assume that I would know the answer to their questions.
Right.
So then I thought, like, rather than you guys like always coming and asking me, I'm just gonna like create the platform so you could just use the platform. You don't really need to come and like keep asking me, because within those conversations, obviously I would then have to go and do my own research, because there's no way of knowing what every single player is doing unless you're keeping a track of them, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna do that and just present you with all the questions, all the answers to your questions, and hopefully I will help to make a difference when it comes to knowing the development of Jamaican footballers, both the men and the women.
Awesome. So it pretty much started out of a demand by your friends for more Jamaican content.
Yeah, it was a interesting conversation, and I just thought, okay, it makes sense, so I'll give it a go.
What has been the highlight of the Tallawah TV so far?
It definitely has to be going to the Worldcup, because I went to the Worldcup with my newspaper and my platform. So my newspaper were very
supportive.
Very supportive, and they've been like that from when I was at uni. And they came out and said, whilst you're at the World Cup, do it in collaboration with your platform. And I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. And it basically just gave me the go ahead to just roam freely and just create content for both the newspaper and for my platform as well.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. And the next question I wanted to ask you is how difficult it is to follow or track the sports players at the moment, considering that you have a full-time job as well as you're doing this.
That's an excellent question. It can be a tedious task, depending on the player, depending on the league. I think it's more difficult to track the development of the female players, because just by being a sports reporter yourself that there is very little information out there on female players, just generally speaking, right? Obviously there's a growth in women football, so people are more able to provide detailed information to assist with individual research and so on. But tracking the development of the Reggae girls is way more tedious than the men. And there are some male players within the Reggae Boyz setup that it is a little bit difficult to track them. And again, that, like I said, that comes down to the league that they're playing in. So yeah, I think that would be it for me. That it comes down to the league that the player is playing in.
Do you have a team working with you, or you're doing this solo?
I have a team when I'm doing like projects. So like when I'm doing like for example, I did a project after the conclusion of the Reggae Girls involvement at the World Cup. Myself and another collaborative video editor and friend of mine, we flew out to Germany to do an interview with the artist that created the Kanya Plummer statue. Okay. And so, for projects like that, I do have a team that I can like lean on, and we can like go and like up and down the country. When the Reggae Girls took their first senior made their first senior trip to the UK, which was the first time the senior team has traveled to Europe. That was in Nottingham. And so again, like I traveled to Nottingham, like with my team, and we did like interviews, did video recorded interviews, took pictures, and so on. And I think we even shared some of the pictures with the federation. So there are moments where I do work in a team, but on a day-to-day basis, it's just me doing my thing.
Okay, you're the one who does the editing as well?
Yeah. So pretty much, I would say 98% of what you've seen on the Instagram page, that's just for me, and on the Twitter as well. So like I said, I usually just link up with my team when it's a major project, like anything to do with like filming, where I know I can't do it by myself just because of the setup. That's when I would like get my team involved.
That's awesome. Cricket or Netflix?
It depends on the occasion. If we're looking at a World Cup, then it has to be cricket.
Okay. Walk us through a day in the life of Krista.
So in the week, it would be my 9 to 5. That's the one thing that comes first because that's the one that pays me, and I can't keep my employer waiting. So it's my 9 to 5, and then like usually throughout the course of the day. So in the morning, around lunchtime, and then once I've finished work, I would check my socials, see if there's any like news breaking stories, anything that I need to cover, and I will take it from there. On my weekends, it's a little bit more difficult. I'm less able to push out content when I'm at games, because again, that then turns over to my employer. So I can't just create content for my platform whilst I'm at a game, whilst I'm covering a game, like for example at the Emirates or at Stamford Bridge. So my 9 to 5 and my work for the Boys newspaper, those always come first, and then I have to just fill my remaining time just pushing out content for my platform.
I totally understand the difficulties, but what future plans do you have for the channel as well as for yourself? Or where do you see the Tallawah TV going?
Future plans, I think it will just be more of the same. I'm just happy that I'm able to contribute to what's on the table. So people are able to look at my platform and they can get a regular player update. They can track a player's development. And so 5 years ago, that would have been a little bit more difficult. The task in itself, like I said, it would have been a tedious one. But if you want to know about, what's going on with the Reggae Girls or the Reggae Boyz, at least you can now use my platform as a point of reference. So for me, like going forward, it would just be more of the same, more interviews to come. But as I've said before, with the pandemic, it's a little bit tricky because I usually do like face-to-face interviews, but now it's like you have to work within the new norm. So you have to do like virtual interviews like what we're doing now. The issue with that is when I do try to like reach out to do interviews, we're working with the football calendar. So if a player usually isn't available because they're committed to their club, they have training, they have games that they have to look forward to. So everything then gets pushed towards the latter stages of the season. So it's a very slow process at the moment, but just going forward, as I said, it will be more of the same with more interviews to come.
Awesome. What advice would you give to any young girl who want to get involved in sport?
I would say go for it. Like, please come on board. Don't let nobody knock your confidence. Don't let no one make you feel that because you're a girl that you don't know much about football. Take all those negative comments and feedbacks and push them to one side. And if it's something that you're really passionate about, then please just go for it. Believe in yourself, and work with consistency, because that's when you will start to see your end results. It can't just be a case of you saying, I'm going to start but by next week I might not do anything. So if you're going to start, if you're going to come on board, if you want to add to the table, make sure it's when you are good and ready so that you know that you can't break your commitment. And just, yeah, just be confident and do you.
Awesome. Where can the people find you? Social media pages.
They can find me on Tallawah TV, so that's TALLAWAH, and that's across all platforms. So that's on YouTube, Twitter, and on Instagram as well.
Awesome. Anybody you want to pick up?
Who? Wow. Maybe my supporters, my people who have followed the page, people who have given positive feedbacks, even if some people have even keep on giving feedbacks that's maybe not been so positive, but I know they're saying it because they mean well. So yeah, my supporters, people like yourself, people who are adding to the contribution of Jamaican football and Jamaican sports as a whole. There's loads of work to be done, but it's nice to see that there's so many faces that we can relate to and we can share ideas and bounce off of each other's energy.
Awesome. Crystal, we want to thank you for passing through the Sports DTM virtual studio.
No, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed speaking to you. And like I said, I think I spoke to someone through the Instagram page. It's just a matter of just continuing with what you guys are doing. And I'm sure there will be success at the end of your tunnel.
Awesome. Awesome. There you have it, Sports DTM fans. A chat with Crystal Davis, the founder and host of Tallawah TV. You can go check her out on Instagram, Twitter as well. Let us hear from you by leaving your comments in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on this interview? This has been another episode of Sports Down the Middle. Like, share, subscribe. Be blessed.